Hello everyone, welcome to another video of Steel Ocean. In this video we will be going over the Japanese Tier 6 heavy cruiser Myoko. Now let's talk about its survivability and defense first. Much like most other Japanese ships in this game, it has the one of the higher hit points in its tier, but it also has the lowest resilience among Tier 6 heavy cruisers. This means that you're really gonna want to, avoid getting hit in this ship. Shells from battleship and heavy cruisers will do a fair amount of damage to you, and some of these bigger caliber shells will definitely destroy your modules and set them on fire. Now, in terms of armor protection, this ship has actually by far the highest side armor among Tier 6 heavy cruisers. What this means is that some of the closer range shots, especially from destroyers, they're going to be hitting your side armor instead of your deck armor, and a lot of the especially some of the lower tier destroyers, they're going to have a hard time penetrating you and doing damage to you. However, that does not mean that you are a capable frontline ship, and you really shouldn't be, unless your team is really out of destroyers. You really shouldn't be on the front line fighting the super actively fighting the enemy destroyers. Now, in terms of firepower, this ship has 5 turrets of 2 guns each, giving it 10 guns total, which is the highest among Tier 6 heavy cruisers. It also has the highest alpha damage out of all the Tier 6 heavy cruisers, along with the highest accuracy. However, this is offset by the worst aiming time, the worst range of fire, the worst rate of fire, and the worst penetration. For this ship, I would recommend a captain that maybe increases your penetration, or someone with the ability to increase your rate of fire that reduces your reload time, or something like that. In terms of your secondary, you do have the highest range out of all the Tier 6 heavy cruisers. However, you only have 4 guns per side, so your secondary is not going to be doing a whole lot of damage to ships like destroyers and light cruisers that get super close. You're going to be relying on your torpedoes. You have 8 torpedoes per side, so if you can manage to turn the ship around quickly, you could theoretically fire off 16 torpedoes in a relatively quick fashion, and your torpedo is going to be things that you rely on to keep destroyers and submarines at bay. In terms of manual AA guns, you do have 8 barrels of AA, which is the highest in the tier. However, you have the worst amount of rate of fire and the worst amount of accuracy. However, with this ship, I've typically noticed that it is very easy to pick off scout planes that get within your range. It is going to be a little bit more difficult to shoot down a whole squadron of torpedo or dive bombers. However, with 8 guns, if they get super close, it is definitely not impossible to wipe out a whole squadron by yourself. In terms of the automatic AA guns, you are slightly below average. I would not rely on it much to do damage to enemy bombers. You're gonna need to use manual AA if you want to shoot down planes. Now, for general tactics of this ship, you are a heavy cruiser, which means your range is going to be greater than that of light cruisers and destroyers. So you definitely want to keep your distance. You do want to stick close to your battleships. You definitely want to be in front of your battleships because your range is going to be shorter than most battleships. So in order for you to fire on the enemy ships, the enemy team's heavy cruiser and battleships, you're gonna have to stay a little bit closer than your own battleships. Since you do have 10 guns, 10 shells, which is a good amount, you could fire at the enemy scouts. By that I mean their destroyers and their light cruisers. For heavy cruisers, a lot of the times you're gonna be due to the amount of 3-on-3 and 4-on-4 games, you can sometimes end up being the primary damage dealer on your team. So in those instances, you definitely want to stay back and make sure you're not in the front line and, you know, being focus fired on by the enemy team. Sometimes when you end up in a higher tier battle, your team might run out of destroyers and you have to take on the scouting role. You do have really good speed and really good steering, so you definitely could become a usable scout if that is necessary. However, that is not your strong suit, and it is not something that the Myoko's designed to do, so that should definitely be treated as a last resort. I think that about sums it up for the tactics, and I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.